Sorry.
Recording started. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome into Business Salad, where we serve up, mix up all things business for you for free. We are your hosts, Stevie and Laura. How you doing today, Laura? Laura,
I'm doing pretty good. Just, salad.
mixing it up. That's
Mix it
right. Yes,
up.
salad sounds. I'd rather have pizza, but you're here for business salad, people. So that's too bad. Salad's what you get.
Salads. Yeah. On the menu.
Did you have a good day?
I did.
Good.
It was a good day. And you know what? Hashtag blessed. I will never take for granted that I work inside, away from the heat. Anyone that's out having to work in the heat or traveling in the heat, definitely on my mind. But I do feel very fortunate. Like being a banker is pretty sweet.
It is. It is. And yeah, it's warm. For those of you out there that don't know, I am on vacation this week. Sorry, Laura, because it was my anniversary on the 4th. So I took a whole week off because why not? So I've been spending a lot of time outside. I'm getting kind of Ritz Cracker Brown. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm working on it.
You'll soon be as tan as me.
Yes, I have to keep up with Laura.
The color of milk.
She does have very fair skin. She's very Snow White, you guys. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, Snow White, sure.
Oh my gosh. So we are here today to talk confidence versus competence, specifically for women. Because Laura, what were you saying about it being mid-year?
So it is mid-year. A lot of people are having their evaluations. Regardless of what industry you're in, that's a good time to kind of have that one-on-one touch point, whether formally or informally, with your supervisor, your boss, your team, whatever it may be. So it's a good time to be thinking about how awesome you are. Own your own awesomeness.
And that's difficult. Like, that's difficult for me. I don't know. Is it difficult for you? Because I feel like, yeah.
Very. Do you want to role play?
No, I don't want to role play right now.
Okay, let me just tell you, I love your outfit. What would you say to that?
This old thing.
See, right away, women, we're like, it's never like, thank you. Oh, that is pretty cool.
That's play free bird, you guys. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. And that's her point, is that,
yes.
You receive a compliment. Can you receive a compliment well? But not just that. Can you talk yourself up?
Yes.
Right. Because that's
compliment yourself.
Yes. Compliment yourself. I saw a really cool thing. So there's this guy that I follow on Instagram. Guys, I'll get his link. He's an attorney. He's a trial attorney, I think. And he does all of these little videos on how to do this, how to say that, how to whatever. And one of them was how to advocate for yourself. And I thought it was so appropriate for the show that we were doing today. And what he said was, I want you to pretend that you are the client. So you're not you. You're over there. You're the client sitting on the bench. And you have to advocate for that client. So whoever it is you're talking to, and whatever point it is that you're trying to get across, you are advocating for that person. But when it comes to saying my client, I want you to take that verbiage and change it to me.
Me. I. Yes.
I. Me. Yes. And I really do think that women struggle with that because we are so used to, is it social conditioning?
1,000,000%, which is why it's more women than men. Not that men don't have the same issue, not that all women have that issue, but I definitely think, we're trained to kind of shrink like a little bit, like, comes back to like taking that compliment, oh, you're such a pretty girl. Well, I have a zit here, oh, you're so smart. Well, I had a lot of help. I mean, from the time we're little, we're deflecting. At some point, we go from like being our own biggest cheerleader as a baby, into a toddler, into a small child. It's like, you're amazing. I know you're so cute. I am the cutest. And then there's a switch, and it's definitely something that we're being fed for sure.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that they did, with the stuff like you're talking about that we're being fed through media and with Photoshop and everything. Now we're going to physical attributes here, but still, like, I'm pretty, but I'm not that pretty. Like, I'm not as pretty as her. So maybe I'm not pretty, Well, she's photoshopped, you know, and everything else. And I'm not saying she's not beautiful, but what I'm saying is that that perception is not necessarily reality. And so when we're conditioned with that for all of those years, I do. And it's becoming more and more prevalent with social media and filters and things like that as far as physical attributes go. But then that kind of spills over right into everything else. What are we capable of? What are we willing to admit that we're capable of? Which,
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes down to. And when we titled this Confidence versus Competence.
Subtitle, How to Toot Your Own Horn.
So yes, yeah, that's the thing. Can you toot your own horn? I would like to know in the comments from the ladies, like, are you good at tooting your own horn? Or the guys, you know, if you want to do it too, or how are you supporting the women around you if that's, you know, something that you find yourself doing, encouraging the women around you to do that. But do you toot your own horn? In what circumstances do you do it? And in what circumstances do you find yourself unlikely to do it? So if I'm in a one-on-one with my female manager, am I more likely to talk about my accomplishments than I am if I'm in a room with men? And why? You know, but if I know that I have the competence to do a job well, do I have the confidence to say that? Whereas men, and this was a study that was done, so women tend to have lower confidence, higher competence, but men have lower competence, sorry guys, higher confidence. So they're like, I don't have the criteria that I need to do this job the way that you want me to do it, but I'm confident that I can figure it out. So yes, I can do it.
Right.
So
like job descriptions, like when you're reading a job description as a woman, it's like, okay, 4-year degree, you know, you need to have proficiency in this, and this program. You should have this many years experience. And we go, oh, I have all of that, but I only have 2 years experience. So I'm just not going to apply. Meanwhile, you know, male counterpart might look at that and be like, I don't know, seems easy enough. I'm going to go for it. You know, I believe I can do it. And, you know, and obviously they can, and they're getting those jobs where we're kind of like already censoring ourselves. So that's like one example of, you know, are we taking our lack of confidence and shutting ourselves out of opportunities on the daily?
Yes. Yeah. And I can say for myself, yes, probably. You know, are there things that I shy away from because I'm not sure that I can do it? Yeah. And since I was a kid, when I tried something, if I didn't excel at it right away, I automatically veered away from it.
Yeah.
So if it was a sport or whatever it was, if I did not immediately excel, that's it. That's fine. I'm not going to practice. If I don't have God-given talent for that, I'm out. I'm all right.
Right. I want to do what I do really well. I only want to be perfect or nothing. So
exactly.
No mediocrity. Where mediocrity is where like the magic is, you know, knowing how to do a bunch of things decently well instead of like being so hard on ourselves.
Yes. And recognizing that we can get better. Like you don't have to be great at first. It's okay. You can get to that level. But like I'm mediocre right now. I am mediocrities. I'm ready.
So I have to tell you, so, you know, kind of going back to mid-years and reviews and kind of tooting your horn, talking about your own accomplishments, you know, to someone who maybe does not see you on a daily basis. I will say, and of course I do see you on a daily basis, but I will say as far as promoting yourself, I think you do it better than most people that I know. And I'm sure it took you a very long time to get to that point, you know, but you are someone that you're like, I am confident, I can do this, and you will speak up in a room. Now, you know, we are in a female driven industry at our level. So like, as you go into higher echelons, you get, you know, definitely more males than females historically, but, you know, at our level, there's a lot of females and that might feel like a safer space. So that has a lot to do, I'm sure, with, you know, and it's not, they like shy away from like, humble and bragging, like these words that kind of condition us. Like humble is good, you know, it's in the Bible somewhere, I'm sure, you know, like be humble, let someone else talk about you, don't talk about yourself, they'll see what you work in silence and they'll see what you're doing. No, stop working in silence. I've done many reviews, you know, monthly reviews, annual reviews, whatever, and we always are supposed to, and I do it for my boss too, you've done it for many people, I'm sure, you know, in one way or another, like kind of give me a synopsis of how you've been doing this past month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, year, you know. And I tell people, I'm like, like sell to me as if you were applying for this job today. Tell me your accomplishments kind of thing. And I mean, you would be surprised. Well, probably you wouldn't be, um, how little I get back. It's kind of like, well, it's very like someone's afraid to delve into what they did well. They'll mention it very lightly and then be like, but you saw that, that I did that. So you need to embrace that on my behalf. So yeah. And I always say, like, if someone was reading that, a self-assessment of you that doesn't know you, would they know what you did this year?
Right. That's great. I love that. So that's a good tip, everybody. Like if you wrote down your accomplishments, or if you looked back on a recent review or whatever it was where you had the opportunity to sell yourself, did you? If somebody came to you and brought that to you as a third party and you looked at that, would you have been impressed? Would you thought that you understood the whole story? Or would you have been like, oh, well, they didn't really do a whole lot, did they? Yeah. Meanwhile, they just rose the sun, who knows?
Very well could have,
And I think too, that it's important to, if you struggle with vocalizing your accomplishments, work at least on compiling them on paper. That's a good start.
Yes.
Right? Because that's something that I do. Like, in fact, I have a review coming up. And that was one of the things that I did, was I went back and I compiled some information showing, improvements or accomplishments that I've made, or whatever the case may be. That might not necessarily be something that's easy to articulate in that meeting, but it's on paper. So at least it can get the conversation started. I think too, that having owned businesses where marketing is a big deal, talking about yourself, talking about your business, talking about your team, that's helpful too. So when you see some people that are excelling at that, first of all, don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, how are you doing this? How are you so good at talking about yourself, at talking up your team, at talking up your presence? And getting some pointers from people who at least appear to be good at that, who very well may not feel like they're good at that at all. So remember, it's also all in perspective.
It is. It's the persona that you're putting out there. I think that's a great point, like marketing. At the end of the day, in the business world, whatever that business may be, you are, sorry to say, you're a product. You are a product to your customers. If you have customers, you're definitely a product to your company. How are you bringing value? So I think I'm someone, and I think that, obviously, Stevie, you're this way too. We need the applause. It's like, I want to know what I did well. I want to be recognized. Like, that's my love language, is recognition. But we have to balance that with, are we giving someone the opportunity to recognize us? Like, again, it comes back to that, stop hiding your light under a bushel. And I think, it's just hard. I think, with women, we don't do it. It's not ladylike to brag. It's not prudent to stretch, what your skills are. I don't have the article to cite, but I have the gist of it. There was a woman, she was applying, looking at job listings, and she had read about, like, how, men will see a job listing, they'll just go for it. And women like, oh, I don't have everything down to the letter, I'm not going to apply. So she took that and she started applying for things that felt out of her reach. And she ended up getting an interview, like, for her dream job. And she was like, oh crap, well, now what do I do? Like, they're going to know I'm full of it. I don't meet all those criteria, but they had a test. So, like, she passed the test. She was certainly, anything else that she needed, they could teach. So she passed this very difficult test and she got this job, and it was a huge pay increase from where she had been before. But, it was all like, it was more like an experiment for her. She's like, I'll just show that, how this works for us and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh, shoot, I'm thinking like a guy and it's working, and that gave her that boost of confidence that will continue to allow her to do that job. Like, she went through the gauntlet. She did not lie about her, background or anything like that. She told them what she was and what she knew. And they're like, we still want you. So, but I just thought that was so cool, and I think it doesn't matter what level you're at, it doesn't matter. All the way from entry level job, and you love your entry level job and that's where you want to stay. You still have to highlight what you're doing, and
that's right.
Not be embarrassed to, like, be a braggart or whatever. You're not bragging. You got to toot that horn.
Yes, no, you are not. And it was funny because I just did recently a resume review that was sponsored by the company that I work for. So it was not, it was like, it's a development thing that they do, you know, to kind of help you prepare for the next step, whatever that may be. If it's internal, if it's external, you know, whatever, but it's kind of a service that they offer, a development item. And I did take part in that. And it had been a long time since I had done a resume, because I had owned my own businesses and done things where I didn't really need a resume to highlight myself. So it was awkward. It was, and then the guy, he was so nice. He really was such a sweetheart. But I was like, I'm sorry, like, this is, I'm sure it's so basic and I have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm like, why am I apologizing? First of all,
Right.
you know, there's no reason for me to be apologizing for my resume, especially right off the bat before he even says anything. And then secondly, that was actually a conversation that I had with him, was as he was going through and he was looking at, he was giving me some pointers. But one of the things that he said is, you need to talk up your accomplishments more, not just what you're good at, but what have you done? And I'm like, it feels awkward. And I asked, you know, what are the metrics behind it? How did you help that company grow from 6 figures to 7 figures in that short period of time? You know, talk about that. Don't just itemize what you did at your job. Talk about how you did that job well. And it feels weird. Right. And I asked him, you know, do you tend to see that more? Do you feel like you're giving this feedback more to women than you are to men? And he said, yes, absolutely. Men tend to be right there. Organization of the resume, you know, things like that, aesthetic things, make it flow, you know,
right brain, left brain, you know. Yeah.
Use bullet points, not a run-on sentence. But yeah, women really, we need to work on like the meat of our resumes to really highlight our accomplishments and what we've done. So yeah, it's hard.
Well, and I think, you know, that ties back to keeping like a running tab of like what you've done, what you're working on, because we forget. I mean, we do such cool things all throughout the year. And then we get down where we're having to kind of sit down pen to paper and like actually put that mirror on ourselves. And we're already freaking out because we don't want to put a mirror on ourselves. And then also we kind of blank on everything. We remember the last 2 weeks and that's it. So, you know, keeping that running, like, you know, highlight board basically in whatever format you want to do that. I mean, I'm super low tech. I just have a Word doc that I just add things to, but you know, whatever that might look like. But then that becomes the meat of your resume. I mean, no matter where you are in your career and whether you think that there's nothing that you want to be doing anytime soon and you love your job and you're not going to move, have the resume and keep updating the resume. I also had a resume review. So, you know, one of the things when you know, whatever, I'm not looking for any other positions right now, but it was an exercise. I just popped it right in there. And then whenever they're looking at it with me, I'm like, oh, kind of lackluster, you know. It's very, very basic, and I have not updated it because I'm like, I'm not looking. But when I find something cool, if I ever did, that I want to do differently than what I'm doing now, I'm now going to have to remember years of like major accomplishments, you know, that would really set me apart possibly. So, you know, I think that that's outside of even this conversation, like keeping that accounting to yourself, like a diary, you know, almost, just keep, you know, maybe put something in your calendar every couple months, like update the resume regardless, you know.
Yeah. And I, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the development plans, because we are all very strongly encouraged to keep development plans within our company. And that has, it's multiple facets, right? It's what are you doing to better yourself in your role within the company, if that's what you desire? What does your development there look like in the community? You know, so it really forces you to take a well-rounded look at who you are, not just as an employee, but maybe as a person. And I think that maybe keeping a personal development plan is great for a lot of women, because then, and it's like, our big thing is you don't delete it. Like if it's done, you don't get rid of it. You just mark it as done and you keep moving on. And if something flows into beyond its timeline, that's okay. It happens, right? It's being continued and still being worked on. But then you can go back and you can see the development that you've had. And that's something that I've really had to embrace, because that's not something that I came from. You know, so that whole part of corporate culture was very different for me. And it was a struggle to embrace it at first, but now that I've done it, it gets a little bit easier. Sometimes it's like, I really do have to think about, okay, what am I developing, or do I want to develop? And it can force some introspection, But I
Yeah.
think that it's definitely something that's good to keep even personally. And it could be, ladies,
Yes.
if you're stay at home, it could be about your house. You know, how do you
You're
want
like
to
taking me
develop
right out
this?
of my brain right now. I love it. Yeah.
You know,
So
and
true.
then I did real quick want to touch on too those resume reviews. If you are a hiring manager, strongly recommend having a third party do a resume review for you, because that is super relevant to you as a hiring manager and what you're looking for in resumes. Because sometimes you look through a lot of resumes and you're doing a lot of hiring, and, you know, especially if you have bots that are picking out keywords during the application process.
Right. The
I feel like
keywords.
yeah, it's a lot, and it's nice to be able to look for fresh things in those resumes. And even if it's somebody that is not necessarily somebody that you're going to hire, if it's somebody where there's a coaching moment there for them, if they're especially a young applicant, I think that's really cool too.
1,000,000%, you know, and I think that will help build confidence, development plan, keeping an updated resume, even just like kind of like as a travel log. Where have I been? I don't know where I'm going, but this is where I've been so far, and I've done some pretty cool stuff. You know, I think that like it's good across the board. Stay-at-home mom, a student, you know, a person that's retired. It doesn't matter. Like wherever you are, keep track of what you've done to grow your brain, to grow your heart, to like learn something new, to expand what you already know, because you're gonna be so proud of yourself whenever you like 2 years later look back and go, oh my gosh, like that's right, 2 years ago I, you know, blah blah blah, you know. And that's going to help with the confidence, which is going to like stop that kind of imposter syndrome, and it's just going to make you better. And I think to as women, what we can do to help each other is make sure, we always say it, you know, we build each other up, you know. And if you have a friend, if you have a colleague, and you notice there's someone, if you're like, man, that was really awesome, they're like, oh well, it wasn't anything, like stop and be like, that was really awesome, and you did that, so don't shrink from it. Like let's do that for each other, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. Oh my gosh, that's another thing. Okay, if you have had that situation where maybe you have shrunk back from something and somebody said, no, that's great, or maybe there's a situation where you should have said that to a woman, because we don't always do, or maybe you did. I don't know. Put that in the comments too, because I want to see
We'd
about
love to hear it. Yeah. Any tips anybody has for either taking a compliment better or for promoting themselves in a better way,
Yes.
like, you know,
Yeah.
would love to see it. You know, it's a struggle. Like even if people that do it decently well, it's still, like you said, it looks like I'm confident, but it's every day. It's me putting that face on, like, this is what I did, you know.
I can do
So
this,
yeah.
and I did this, and yes,
Yes.
yeah. So guys, I want you to just pretend you're a club and be a Vegas club promoter, because nobody hustles harder for their club than they do. So
Right.
hustle for your club.
You're your own best friend. Sell your best friend. Well, don't
That's
sell.
right. Oh my gosh. Well, this was super fun. Thank you everyone for joining us. Laura, it was good to see you.
You
And
too.
thank you so much for
Like the
all
tan.
valuable input. Thank you. I'll be even tanner. Y'all have a good week, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. This is Salad.